All right, welcome home racing fans. Just a little bit of intro for our race here, some track information, had a few questions, thought I'd give a few answers. So let's get right to it. Okay, the Show Me Speedway is routed MDF, 4 lanes of course. It's 5 by 16 feet with 10.5 foot straights on average. The lane spacing right there at 4 1/4, so we can race the big cars too. As far as the surface goes, I used 3 coats of satin latex. I rolled it, brushed it, mixed it up, and of course I painted the infield, but that's the racing surface. It's absorbed a fair amount of rubber over the years after the rebuild, so we get pretty good grip on that. Of course, also, as you can see, I used slot car corner braid. It used to be copper tape, and now it's braid, and I've made it as flush as possible to the track. Okay, the corners, they're not really truly banked. You can tell that they're elevated. And all I did to accomplish this, and I show that in the track build video, is right here in the center, I put some screws down, and then on the outer edges of the track, and I'll show you here, as you can see, the bend there. So it's raised up here, and then it goes down flat. So basically, it's just slightly elevated. It's not really a true bank, but it just makes sure they're not off camber, and it works pretty well. To show you over here, I changed the elevation height on each end, so the corners are just a little bit different. But like I said, it's not real true banking, just a little bit of elevation, and it does the trick. Like I said, it's just, I didn't want it to be flat or off camber. It just adds a little bit to the racing. Okay, just a word on power and control. I like to test different systems all the time. Lately, I've been testing one of these low-cost 10 amp units, adjustable voltage from Amazon. Works really great. 10 amps is all we need for this track, so it works just fine. If we use higher amp draw motors, some old commercial motors, some vintage stuff, then I have this 22 to 25 amp old pile / pyramid unit. Right now, it's connected to my sanding stations, but I can just swap them if we have to. And for control, I'm just using the very low-cost basic Professor Motor 2120. These work just fine with all of these cars. Never had any complaints. You'll notice I had cut out this little area right here, and that makes it easier for me to get inside and clean the wiper when it needs it. This one looks like it needs it, but helps me maintain them. But I haven't lost a controller yet, but we do have a couple for spares. So this basic controller, it just does the job. And for lap timing, of course, I'm using TrackMate. Everybody has their favorite. It's just simple, and it works for what we do down here. It's infrared. There's my light bridge right there. Works just fine. We've just never had an issue with it. Master control is over here, running off the laptop, and I just have a split screen there to put it up there so we can pay attention to that instead of driving and wreck. One question that I get asked quite often is, how come the track is so high? And it is. It's 4.5 feet. And the answer to that question is because if you look right here, I have a very old basement. It was built in 1947. And in the 60s, the way they used to fix a leaking basement is they would pour a reinforcement cap, as you can see right here. And this goes all the way around in the basement. So I had a choice. How was I going to maximize the amount of room I have down here to have the tracks and everything that I want? Well, the answer was I just had to build the table right off the top edge of the cap, and that's why it's 4.5 feet. But from my perspective standing here, it is a different perspective, but we still get the job done. As far as when we have the occasional off, that might happen once in a while, is we just use a grabber around this edge right here, got an extra long one, and that's how we turn Marshall. As far as the race is concerned, the Showdown was always based on a couple of things. One of the main things was scratch building. We have two different classes. We have Strange Brew Modifieds, named after the great Strange Brew, and we have standard sportsman cars. They are all scratch built from the chassis, brass, steel. Some bodies are resin, some bodies are other bodies from other slot cars. Didn't matter. You paint, you decal, and you make a good old-fashioned roundy rounder. So that's what the series was based on in 132. Now, this year, we're doing something special with the land barges back here in 125th, 124 scale. And in this case, I've allowed the H&R chassis, or old ProCheck chassis, just for those that aren't comfortable yet with scratch building, soldering, creating their own chassis. So I went ahead and said, okay, let's allow that, because I want guys to build some slot cars. And it's fun. And most of them have already told me that they've done this year, but they want to try their hand at scratch building. And then this is what, happens when you start building your own here. Chief Tall Feather there at War Eagle River, beautiful chassis. And that's really the whole essence behind this Showdown. This event is just to maintain, or to, I don't know, carry on the art of scratch building our chassis. I mean, we've been doing it for years and years and years, so that's what I wanted to base it on. Now we're going to talk about just a few things on tuning and how we run the event. So the first thing I'll let you know is when the cars come in, I go through them and I inspect them. I take them out of the box, I bring them out here on the track, and I give them a test run. I make sure they function. If there's been any damage to the cars in shipping, like there was this year, I immediately notify the owner, and I'll make the best repair that I can, so they know what I'm doing. Now, during testing, we just make sure that everything functions the way it should. But if we see an issue, I'll let the owner know. If, for example, this one doesn't, but if you need braid, let's just say it needs a braid. The braids are kind of bad, they're worn, we got to change them. Or the tires, maybe the tires are, I don't know, maybe they're just on their third year, they're wore out or something like that. Just something simple. Or it could be something more, like a motor or a gear. Well, I run this race a little bit different than some of the proxies out there. We have parts, okay? I have everything down here, from braid to motors to tires to gears, even wheels. So if something happens to your car during the race event or during testing, something simple or major, but you didn't build this car and work so hard on it to send it here, and then all of a sudden something happens. I want this car to be raced, and so do you. So I will let you know if something happens, and if need be, which we've done in the past, we will change everything. I'll put in a new motor, pinion, crown, if a wheel, something like that, tires, whatever the car needs, that's what I'm going to give it to make sure that it can come out here and race. And I don't assign any penalties, anything like that. All these cars come in, most of them, 99%, run just fine. But during the race, during testing, fast lap challenge, stuff like that, if we have an issue, we're going to address it. So that's just the way we do things. If I do change the tires, I do take the wheels over to the tire truer, and I true them up the best that I can, and then we'll test them to make sure they're nice and smooth. So that's just how we do things here. Like I said, other proxies don't, but I'm going to make sure, I'm going to do my best anyway, to make sure the car is going to run and make this event. As far as car prep goes, again, if it needs to be lubricated, if it's a little dry, use a little bit of oil on it. We always maybe put just a very, very light drop of Inox on the braid and make sure the braid is clean. Now, in between heats, testing and everything else, this is our cleaning station, sanding stations. I have one at each station, and it's really simple. I have a sponge right here, just a little cheap sponge I get, and I cut them up, and I put a little bit of 91% alcohol on there, and what that does is that's what we use to clean the tires. So if the tires get glazed up, if they're a little bit dirty, then we can just put it right here and clean it up. I have the voltage turned down just to show you what we're doing. And then you pick it up, you let it dry a little bit, and it's just deglazing and cleaning urethane. Works really well. If for some reason during the race we notice that the tires might maybe need to be trued again, maybe they're not true, because I don't true them all, only if I have to change them. So that's where we have our sanding station here. I've got some really fine 800 grit, and then we'll just sit here and we'll give them a sanding if need be. So that's just our tire cleaning, just a little bit of alcohol, just to get the junk off, the gunk, make sure they're clean, because as you know, a clean tire is a happy tire. As far as other repairs go, if we have time, depending on the damage the car gets, we have everything we need right here. We've got our soldering stations, our setup blocks, our steel. We'll straighten it. We'll put the bumpers back on. We'll get it back in race trim the best that we can. You know, given the time frame. If it's during the race, it may not get repaired until after. As long as it's still running and it's still competing, if it loses a bumper or two, we just keep going. All right, as far as the race format is concerned, on Friday, we usually start with a little shakedown, is what we call it, and Thursday nights, where we're just taking the cars out and giving them an extra test run, making sure, they're ready. And if they're ready, then what we do is a fast lap challenge for each particular class. So, for example, with the land barges, we're going to test every single one of them. We're going to do a 10-lap burst, 10-lap heat, where we're going to record the time, and then you're going to know who the fastest car is. Just remember one thing. Just because you're the fastest doesn't mean you always win, because in combat, things get tricky. But that's the first award, so all the builders know who's boss out here. And we will do that for every class, the sportsmen's and the modifieds. Then on Saturday, we're going to run the race. We're going to start with the land barges this year. We're going to go to the sportsmen and then to the modifieds. We're going to run 1-minute heats, which is more than enough. It gives us a great race with all these cars. And I hope you guys enjoy it. We're going to try to go live or semi-live, just depending on my technical prowess or lack thereof. But it's going to be a great race this year. Again, hats off to all of you. If you're new to this, you're thinking about joining in, by all means, please do so. If you have any questions, all you have to do is contact me. So, looks like it's going to be a fun event, and I hope this video helped you with a little bit of background on what we're doing.